Now, in the first half of the stream, I was talking about how ultimately it looks like Blame F has been usurped, by Device, who's clearly using star player privilege to ultimately stamp his will onto the team and the organization and get his way. And Device is going to be the in-game leader. Now, that was announced so quickly. It was announced in 24 hours that it's pretty clear to me that they had it planned. It was obviously the way they were going to go as soon as they grew a pair and got rid of Blame F. And, that's definitely colored some of my critique of Blame F now, because I don't think you can be a successful in-game leader with a sword of Damocles hovering over you. One mistake and you're out. Your star player is going to, take over and you're just going to be benched. I don't think that's conducive to being successful. And I'll also add, it's pretty wild that if you empower a star player like that, what's the incentive for a star player to perform if you're going to give them the keys to the city if they lose games and go out of a tournament? Now, I'm not saying Device would deliberately underperform in an RMR and not go to a major. I'm pretty sure he wanted to be at the major. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, though, you're giving people a psychological sort of out in the back of their mind that maybe they're not even aware of. And that's far from ideal, So, ultimately, I have to believe that I don't think this is going to be a long-term solution. Now, I'm super pissed off because I was like, right, I'm going to plan out a stream and it's going to be great. And we're going to go over who's going to be the next Astralis IGL. Who could it be? Well, instead, we made graphics for it and everything. So instead, we're going to have to repurpose that now into who could be an IGL when Device invariably fails. Right, that's how we're going to have to phrase it now. So anyway, we did graphics so we could talk about who should be the long-term fix for Astralis. There was a number of names. I guess we can start by sort of ruling out MSL. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Look, MSL's kind of fucked his own career in a way that, I haven't really seen a player do for a while, maybe ever, because MSL was, in a post-North world, he just signed up to a number of, really dubious projects, where the money wasn't, ever turning up and stuff. And, he could have had, he had opportunities where I think maybe Fnatic was a team he could have joined or some other stuff. And he said, I'm just going to go and wait for the right team. Yeah, he did that Gorillas org. There was that other one. That wasn't it that Titans with an S or something. And it's I know, dude, you could have got into a decent team, a decent org, and for some reason you held off. And you can't really do that as a player. You can't really do that as an IGL. You need to be out there proving yourself sort of all the time. And now, while I think MSL would still do a better job than some other IGLs out there from a tactical perspective, I guess now you've got the doubts about whether or not he would be able to hang in CS2 at all. And so I saw people Duncan's obviously never gonna, the Thorin MSL bromance is never gonna die. It's like Titanic. He's just there staring at that amulet, that necklace, I guess. Years later, just he's just gonna be doing that forever. Whereas I'm not. I'm sort of I'm over it. MSL needs to be a coach now. Now, had he joined Astralis instead of Rugger, I've got nothing against Casper. That could have worked for me. I think MSL will be a wicked coach, no doubt about it. But anyway, it's just I guess it's just over. So I didn't even make a graphic for MSL, is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, these are the potential suspects. So let's start with this one. This was the big chat. Suspect Glaive, right? A lot of people were kind of talking about, obviously Glaive will want to go back from Ents once they've kind of, flamed out of the major. Now, obviously, we don't know, what's going to happen at the major and, who they're likely to play. And I don't think that's been determined yet, what the opening matchups are going to be. I'll just say, though, look, Ents is a fantastic run organization. And I said in a previous stream that, you know, what Glaive has achieved by getting to the major with a team that was picked up in a 12-hour window, and to do it with, no disrespect to these players, it's just that they're inexperienced. You know, he's done it with Kylar and Goofy on a roster, you know, Polish players. They're having to communicate in English, for, you know, because obviously Glaive doesn't speak Polish. And a lot of people have said, you know, actually he would welcome going back, you know, because, look, Ents have already done amazingly to get to the major, in my opinion. I don't know kind of how far they can go realistically. You know, I don't even consider them dark horses with that lineup. So what people are saying is, okay, Glaive can go back to Astralis. But I don't think that's on. In fact, they did do some little, like, jokey tweets about it. Glaive said, sometimes things just happen, nobody really knows why, but everyone is wondering and thinking about it. And then, obviously, Kyler said, thanks for everything and good luck in future. And, you know, they were putting out, like, a little bait that he was going to, like, leave after the major and, you know, go back to Astralis. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know if that's actually viable. I have to say, out of all of the moves we're going to discuss as a long-term solution, it's one of the most possible. I think, personally, maybe Glaive could see it in himself to kind of go back there and try again. Maybe it's a different atmosphere, but I know. I mean, for me, I think it's essential for Glaive to get to another good, well-run organization, which he's found in Ents, and win trophies with that other organization, and in doing so, establish his legacy. You know, which is the greatest IGL of all time. I've said Carrigan is catching him up. He's winning these tournaments with FaZe. You know, and Glaive hasn't won one in a while. So obviously, you know, he cements it if he goes and does something with Ents. But, you know, look, this is a move. If I was, again, I'll rate these moves out of 10 as like being likely. This is like a 6 for me. As being a likely return, because ultimately I feel that a disappointing performance at the major, is it fair that if Ents were to start cutting some of the Polish players and trying to rebuild a lineup for what Glaive wants? I mean, it's probably not fair given what they've achieved after being a 12-hour pickup, but it is what's likely. And then what would that lineup look like for Ents? Obviously, they are some of the most well scouted player pickups in the, you know, the last few years have all gone to Ents, although a lot of people did say that's kind of the Snappy Saw combination doing that. We don't know. Maybe Ents has a really good scouting network outside of those two, but we don't know that. You would need to rebuild, and you're rebuilding an international lineup, and we don't know who's going to play well with each other and how communication's going to work. So it's a lot of variables if he stays at Ents, which is why I think it's a potential that he could go back to Astralis and maybe, you know, work with this Stabby combination. But yeah, it's a possible move. It's a possible move for me. As I said, I rate it about a 6. And I think certainly if you gave me a choice between stick with Device long term or get Glaive back and see what he can do with Stown and Yabi, I'd probably do the latter, frankly. Anyway, other one people were talking about, which I thought was kind of weird, it's certainly not one I think is likely for me, but anything's possible, I guess, was, of course, your boy Carrigan, top suspect. Apparently, people were linking this to the situation with FaZe and Complexity. People were saying, oh, because of the conflict of interest, and who knows what's going to happen. Maybe FaZe will disband and Complexity will be the team because it's the most expensive one. And Banks, the original Banks, is now the CEO of FaZe. They go into a more content creator focus. Maybe they get rid of the CS team, like, totally. But obviously we now know Complexity and FaZe don't have that conflict of interest anymore because Complexity's been bought back by Jason Lake with a new company Jason Lake has founded, which appears to be a financial consortium. So, I mean, there isn't really any impetus now about FaZe going to change, get rid of players, get rid of the CS team. It would only be a purely financial thing. And keep in mind, I mean, you would have to assume with all these changes FaZe are going to make, they have to be in a better place moving forward financially anyway. Now, Carrigan, though, I mean, he might look at, like, the FaZe roster. You know, FaZe is a team that it's certainly, you know, it's not an old team, but the Rain question is there. You know, Rain is 29, pushing 30. The rest of the players are, you know, with the exception of Frozen, I think like Brokey's 24, Robs is 24, something like that. You know, it's not like it's old. It's not like they would ever need to do anything. But Rain is such an important player to FaZe. I don't know. And Carrigan has a very special relationship with FaZe. If you go and look historically with Rain, if you go and look at any of the interviews he's done while he's at FaZe, he's always said Rain is the guy that, like, you know, I can trust. And, you know, Rain is the guy that I always trust to go big when we're at LAN and we need that extra push. He's like a guy that definitely is key to what Carrigan wants to do. And Rain's not getting any younger. And he's got kids. And, you know, I mean, what more has Rain got? Like, Rain is the original Giga Chad. He's got nothing to prove. He's just a fantastic player. And so maybe if Rain were to retire or drop off or his position was to become untenable, maybe Carrigan could be tempted to go somewhere else. I also kind of think for a Dane, that there is this very real thing. There is the call of Astralis. Like, I'm trying to compare it to something. But, you know, like, you know, it's like lycanthropy, I guess. You know, an Astralis is the full moon. You can't resist the call. It's the biggest org in Denmark. You get recognized in the street. People, you know, you get your picture up on billboards. You do all these events. You've got ties to the media. You know, like, it's one of those things. If you're Danish, doing things with Astralis is sort of key to your career. Your definement. And obviously with Carrigan, we know he never really got to do that. You know, he never really got to, you know, Glaive kind of ultimately replaced him and made Astralis what they were. Carrigan laid the foundations, but Glaive took them to the promised land. And if I'm Carrigan, that would sort of, I'd be thinking about that. I'd be thinking about, maybe I do get a run it back with Device, and even though it's not the same lineup, it would be the org, and I could go there. And if I won a major with Astralis at the end of my career, that would be the ultimate way to kind of like leapfrog Glaive, because I did it. I did it. You didn't. These are the things that you're never going to really know. You're never going to know if players think the way you would think in their situation. Certainly, if I was Carrigan, I could be tempted, is, I guess, the long and the short of it. But I also have to say that why would I leave FaZe assuming it goes on, you know, like as is, why would I leave FaZe for Astralis right now? I mean, the key here is Astralis is nowhere near FaZe's level. Like, not individually, not as a team. FaZe has a real chance of winning this major. And obviously, the more they win in CS2, the longer you feel their tenure can go. So I'd probably rate this at like a 3, maybe even a 2. I don't see Carrigan going back, but the temptation will always be there because of the Astralis factor. Then the other one people were talking about, and by the way, this screenshot of him just being a criminal, this should just be used for, like, he's just a criminal to the game. He's just a fucking criminal to the game. Like, this should be on his Wikipedia page. That's what I'm saying. Right? You know where I'm at. I'm a fucking hater. Like, he is a criminal. So, a lot of people were saying, Hooksy, you know, think about what he did at G2, right? Think about what he did at G2. And think about, you know, he got them their first trophies in 5 years, nothing to be sneezed at. He has sort of tamed star players and egos and somehow managed to make it all work. He has had a relatively, I don't want to call it meteoric, but the rise from being like, wherever he was, I can't remember the name of the team, it wasn't big, but, you know, before Copenhagen Flames, and then Copenhagen Flames did G2, And it's like, and then he's managed to tie down a job in G2, despite actually, in my opinion, failing ultimately. I know people are going to look at the surface and go, but he won 3 trophies or whatever it is. And he's, finally, and they're at this major 3-0. And remember, CS2 is its own thing. There's nothing stopping G2 having an era in CS2 at the start of it. I'm treating it as a totally different game. Everyone's getting a clean start. I'll even go so far as to say Hooksy is a much better player in CS2 than he was in CSGO. He's actually he's gone up from like 0.8 to 0.82. And sometimes that little jump can be like enough to get you over the hump of winning a game. One of the most unforgivably stupid things Hooksy ever said in an interview, which he's prone to do, was, I feel like I could have got 10 more kills and it wouldn't have made a difference. We were going to lose that game. That's one of the most inexplicably stupid things I think I've ever heard any player say ever in any interview ever. Because it's like, well, it totally depends on the 10 kills, really, doesn't it? If you get 10 1v1 clutches, you've won 10 rounds, So it seems like pretty wild, But anyway, in terms of a move to Astralis, put it this way, I do see him invariably being cut from G2. Now, if G2 flop at this major, it's then, right? G2 have gone 3-0. They've got Munacy. I think Munacy's going to be like the MVP in CS2. I think, like, if you looked at his RMR stats, he's off the fucking chain. He really is crazy. Plus, he's an AWPer, and we've seen some people not be able to get to grips with the AWP in CS2. Obviously, you've got, your Nico and Hunter there. You have got Nexa in. Nexa's been brought in to be this supportive element, replacing JKS, to do more of the dirty work. And so, right, you've brought in an enabler who's meant to help unlock the plethora of stars you have on that. All you have to do is call good T-sides, really, and you're done. That's it. You're going to win your games. If Nico... I know Nico's had a drop-off and Hunter's had a drop-off as well in CS2, but I don't think that's going to last forever. I think they're phenomenally talented riflers. So, ultimately, G2 should be going to this major thinking... We're one of the favorites. We should be winning this. We should be in the final. That's the expectation I have. Now, if they achieve that, his job is safe. I think it's academic. Again, would I leave G2 go to Astralis even as a Dane? No. But on a long enough time scale, he's if they keep falling short, he's the next guy to go. Next is not going. They've brought him back to G2 because of the types of work that he does. And they cut JKS, and they knew the community weren't going to fuck with that, and they haven't. They're still delusional about this player, and as I said, I'm going to end the stream talking about that. But yeah, look, could he go to Astralis? I think he'd be a good culture fit. He's arrogant about his game, He definitely isn't shy about media work and coming out. He wouldn't do like a Blame F thing. He would, actually, credit to Hooksy, when he's had nightmare games, he's come out and done an interview. He's been on the desk with Kassad, his critics. Like, he doesn't, the hate, the abuse, all the derision, none of it phases him. So, like, one of the problems Astralis have really had is leadership. It's a total failure of leadership. They don't have a coach there that's stepping up and leading. They don't have a leader there who's stepping up and leading. Their star players in hiding, doing Machiavellian things to get his fucking stamp so he can have the team he wants and everything else. So ultimately, you have to say, Hooksy would be a good culture fit for Astralis. I don't think he's a particularly great IGL. I think you would have to just say on the surface of it, he's probably a better IGL than Blame, though. So, look, in terms of rating this is like a 5 in terms of possibilities for me. You kick Bro back to talent, you bring Hooksy in, you make him IGL, and this is already after he's been cut from G2. I could see it. I could see it. It's a 5. I think it's less likely than Glaive, but it's possible depending on how things go with G2. But I expect G2 to have a very deep run this major. So the other one, good old Bird from Sky. Now, a lot of people talked about this, and I got to say, for me, I don't see it. I think Bird from Sky would jump at the chance to join Astralis because, look, so just a little bit about Bird from Sky in case you don't know anything about him. Bird from Sky's been, like grinding these tier 2 events for ages. And a lot of people, because they used to do well in these events, and he's like a relatively unknown player, and he was doing this in his like late 20s, he sort of came out like quite late in his career. People were ultimately accusing him of like radar hacking. Like they're like, oh, he's definitely cheating. He has to be. And it's like, I never got that. I think he's just an intelligent guy who can outthink most people in tier 2. And trust me, that's probably not as hard as you think it is. He's capable of calling like moderately innovative T-sides. And, ultimately he's not very mechanically good, and he's old and hasn't got any of the accolades or any of that stuff. So he's currently in, a 0-0 Nation. I don't even know if they're still active or what's going on there. But that's the lineup that he was in. They kind of had this weird, fucked up time of things where they've had like they've disbanded, haven't they? They got released. But I mean, like, he had some of the ex-big players, and I think that VLDN has gone to Bleed now. I think Kassad's given him a trial. They had Fasher at that team, JDC, I think, went there, and Searson was there, which is quite a drop-off for Searson. So it's not like he didn't get pieces at the end of his career, but ultimately they just weren't doing anything. So I think even the idea of him being like a tier 1 IGL, tier 1 caliber, is kind of like, nah, he never was that. This guy never was that. And so you add to that, you add the lack of profile. If you go to his HLTV stats as well, and you look at his level against top 5 opponents, of which he's only played 2 maps because they don't qualify, they don't play the top teams, he's 0.70, and overall his rating is 0.98. It's like, I don't think he has the firepower to hang at tier 1. I don't think he has the chops. And Astralis are always going to factor in when they're picking someone up. What is your reputation? What is your presence? Like, put it this way, Astralis can't risk a gamble on IG, particularly if they drop device from IGL and they bring in somebody. They can't really risk a gamble that fails. Like, you can roll the dice on Blame F because he's a fantastic player and he's got a big reputation. Right? And you can roll the dice on the heroic guys, even though, they're like moody weirdos or whatever. But, again, they've been good at various points in their career. You can't say that about this guy. So even though people have been, coming out and saying, yeah, get Bird from Sky's got to be in with a chance. He's Danish, he's underrated. He really isn't, guys. He's done very well in his career relative to his talents and opportunities, but definitely not Astralis caliber. I rate this like 0. And I also do want to say, whoever put in the chat, and it will have scrolled past, because remember, you're now part of the stream, for good or ill. Somebody did say, I saw someone on Reddit call him shit from Sky, which, that's a bit harsh, but yeah, not good enough for Astralis is the key component. Birds do shit from Sky. Ask Henry G. This was one of my little theory crafter-roonies. This is Zipnick's. Zipnick's has a big head. Zipnick's has a big brain. Right? What if? So, listen, a lot of people have forgotten about Zipnick's. Obviously, Zipnick's is still on the books at Astralis until 2025 because he got the bag when he was washed. And I thought this was interesting because nobody talked about him potentially becoming an IGL right at the end and maybe coming back onto the roster instead of Bro. Like, I would have thought if it was going to be a short-term measure, by the way, I could have honestly seen them like kicking him up and bringing him back from the dead. I honestly thought that might have been a possibility rather than go for someone new because you don't know where any of this is going to go. But he's 28. He's not like done. There's life in the old dog yet. Now, can he ever get back to hanging at like, a fucking tier 1 level? Probably not. Like, he's bottom fragging on Astralis talent right now. But remember, if we were to talk about just IGL, we take fragging out of the equation. So what if, I want you to imagine a world like Marvel, what if, right? What if Zipnick, with that giant, beautiful brain of his, the clutch minister, with one of the shittest nicknames ever handed out, unfortunately. I could have done better. Next time you want to give a player a nickname, like, consult me, please. What if the guy who conceptualizes about the game in such a way, he's one of the greatest clutch players of all time, what if he was able to practically apply that as an IGL? And so, you know, if you were to think about that as a prospect, well, I actually think that's kind of interesting, personally. He's obviously got a brain, and if you think about it, like, and you can put him in, why not? Like, why can't he transition into an IGL? Why would we say it for everybody else and not him? Now, I don't know enough about the current setup over on the Astralis talent team to know if he's currently IGLing or not. I don't think he is. I don't see why he would. But I think it's like one of those things where it's like, I see all these players, they get towards the end of their career and suddenly they start talking about IGLing. Or put it this way, if you were to give me a choice between Zipnick as a prospective IGL, Device as a prospective IGL, or Dupree as a possible IGL, right, who we'll talk about in a second. I didn't do a graphic for him either, though, so we'll tag him on at the end of this. Like, I put Device at the bottom of the pile. I'd rather roll the dice on Zipnick, and I'd rather roll the dice on Dupree than pick Device as, like, the IGL. Like, 100%. Just to talk about Dupree, you know, at the end of the day, Dupree's done a little bit of IGLing at various points in his career. He's quite versatile. He's willing, you know, and he's at the end of his career now. You saw he's willing to go to Prezi to try and maybe get to a major with a smaller team. Maybe you could have Dupree come back as well in the same way that, you know, you've had with other players in the past. And plus, I don't even think there would be a fee associated with it. I don't even know what his buyout would be or if there's any buyout at all at Prezi. And I think Device and him have always had a really good relationship. I know it was quite hard not having Dupree around when he left to go to NIP on Device. So, I mean, again, if I was to, like, have one of the old guard come back over Device taking the reins, yeah, I'd do that. So I would say this. For Zipnick's coming back and being an IGL, I'd give it like a 3 or a 4. For Dupree coming back and being an IGL, I can give that a 5. This one upset me a lot, but it's probably the timeline we live in. This is your boy Pricer Tag. Now, I want you to tie together all of the content that will be recent if you're watching on YouTube, and all of the streams if you're a regular live stream enjoyer. And I do want you to remember that when they cut Tag over at NIP, they were like saying, oh, you know, he wants to be an IGL. I could see him transitioning into an IGL. Yes, he would. One day he will be a great IGL. Now, I can't make sense of Tag's career. I've never seen anybody be so overvalued on the basis of doing well in an online era of Counter-Strike. I've never seen anything like it. And he is ultimately somehow, like, just constantly snowballed this career into where, you know, he gets chances at top tier orgs. Well, I mean, NIP, okay, fair enough. Overselling it with top tier orgs. I guess they're technically tier 1. But he gets chances at orgs where he probably shouldn't. I mean, like, but at this point, we should be very much out on Tag. What can we even say about Tag? What can we even say about him as a player? What is he as a player? You know, what's he really good at that he's better at that no one else can do better? He doesn't have that. He doesn't have anything that you could say that. So the idea that he's now, you know, he's been a mediocre AWPer, he's been a mediocre entry fragger, he's been a mediocre anchor, you know, it's like, okay, cool. It's good that you are versatile and willing to be flexible, and that can be good in certain teams, particularly if you have 4 players that are all, you know, at the top of their game. But ultimately, now to talk about, well, there's nowhere else for me to go, I'm going to be an IGL, you know, fine. It sort of seems a bit cheap at the end of your career, which, by the way, spoiler, using the word cheap about your career is probably the only context you could. So, I mean, look, I will say, why was this a potential move? Well, I'll tell you why this was a potential move, because obviously he's played at Astralis before, and Astralis have this weird thing where if you have played for Astralis, they sort of just give you these, like, I don't know, like it's like if you know where the bodies are buried or some shit, they will just give you a career you don't deserve, essentially. Like I can't get over the Bubsky thing. I can't get over, like, they mistreat Bubsky. Bubsky carries water for them publicly, constantly saying how they treat him good, and he actually didn't want to be a player anyway, really. And and then it's like, look, I know from talking to people, again, the Danish scene has no secrets to me. Astralis were like, the ones talking him up into that job at TV2.dk or whatever the fuck it is. And they were also doing this thing where it's like, he just gets airlifted into tier 1 tournaments as an analyst. And it's like, spoiler, he doesn't do it for me. He's got a long way to go. And then it's like, okay, well, if that's how they fucking operate, like, if you are part of the Astralis old guard or Astralis like you, and they did very well on the S-Tag deal from what I understand when Cloud9 came in, even to the point where I think it was like probably them who leaked it to the press what the price tag was. S-Tag, there is a way back for him in Astralis. Definitely. I don't think it's like over. And so as I have to say, this is probably, it's not one of the more likely moves, but it's certainly not like bottom 5 unlikely moves. Probably put this about a 4, maybe even getting towards a 5. That, S-Tag, if he announces he's going to be an IGL and stays in free agency for too long, and Astralis is a train wreck and he's just there, could see Astralis definitely picking him up again, because why the fuck not? Then, it's Mr. Steal Your Girl. Now, why would you even bother making a graphic for him, right? Well, listen, as we know from my extensive report, which I can't help but notice nobody denies now, remember how it was like, oh, the truth will come out? Yabby, right? The truth will come out. It's like I write a fucking 5,000 word article or whatever it was, detailing all the shit you did. Not challenging that, are we? Oh yeah, the truth did come out. It was me. It was me all along, Stabby. So anyway, Mr. Stown Girl here. What you have to remember is Mr. Stown Girl was offering to be an IGL if the org would only kick Cadian. That was the fucking, that was one of the things that were on the table. Please, please, please kick Cadian. I'll be an IGL. I'll do anything. And so, listen, you have to understand, once the genie's out the bottle on that particular issue, like deluding yourself into thinking you can be an IGL, right? Once that's there forever. You always think you can be an IGL. I believe Stan probably believes he's like a super smart player and could be an IGL. I honestly thought when Blame went, I thought Stan was going to be the guy they announced temporarily. I had I couldn't. I should have put it together with the device tweet. No fun. I should have really figured that out, but I didn't. I thought, oh, Stan's going to be the IGL temporarily while they recruit a long-term IGL. This is going to be a fucking shit show. I actually don't know what's worse, Device or Stown. It probably would be Stown, because obviously he's new to the team and he's got this, like, they're in this weird, like, career death pact with Jabby. But, there's not really any reason why you would do this move, particularly now, as it would be a replacement to Device. So, I mean, ultimately, how likely is this? It's down to like a 1 or a 2. But then, obviously, you have to factor in, this is fucking Astralis we're talking about. This is Astralis. Anything is possible in Astralis. Even like having your director of sport not know if a player played for Astralis talent or not. So when you factor that in, can you really ever rule it out? Nah. And keep in mind, let's also just talk about the component of the Blame F cut. You can't cut one of your fucking 2 million signings, can you? You can't cut this 2 million pair that you did this Machiavellian scheme to bring into your fucking org. You can't cut either of them, but their stats are dog shit. So it's like, well, I guess no refunds. But yeah, I don't really see this one. Then patty cake. Zippel can look away now. Obviously, this is an interesting prospect now because Patty has got ecstatic to a major, right? So, unlike Blame, Patty has proven he can, with pieces, that certainly don't have the reputation, if the talent, of the Astralis team. He's proven he can get a team like that to a major. It's an all Danish lineup. He is Danish. A lot of people are kind of sleeping on him a little bit, I think, in terms of like what he achieved with Ecstatic is actually super, super legit. And he's only 25, which in IGL terms is, young. And on top of that, the dude can frag. Like, the dude actually has decent stats. Like, I'll give you them as of having qualified. At the RMR, Patty had a 1.12 rating as an IGL across 9 maps, which, fuck me. I mean, that blows most IGLs that we're sort of talking about in this context out of the water. And so the only problem Patty would have effectively is a credibility issue. It's like, it's the classic, if you're a young IGL or an inexperienced IGL or an IGL that doesn't have a lot of accolades and you have to go and work with star players, how do you get the star players to respect you and listen to your calls? More importantly, how do you get those players to shrug off when you make a bad call, an objectively bad call? Because one of the things that happens a lot in teams with IGLs, and this is how IGLs end up catching smoke and getting cut, and generally when you want to get rid of an IGL, all the players will get together and it's like a mega backstab when you replace an IGL. It's just been like that since the start of the game. What always ends up happening is it's the bad calls, and they build up. And you go, fuck, he called that. And I knew we shouldn't have done that. And then it happens again and again and again. And you have this encyclopedic knowledge of all the bad calls. I mean, you don't listen to any of the good calls. You're a star player. I wouldn't have done that. And then eventually you get talking to your teammates going, this isn't working, man. He can't call a fucking game. Look at all them stupid rounds we lost. You do your demo review. They do this thing now in teams, by the way. And it's always called like a different thing. But it's basically like a sharing session. This happens all the time now, where people just get shit off their chest. And basically, if you're an IGL, you just have to sit there while like you've done your demo review, and then it's time to get shit off your chest. And the players are just going, yeah, that strat was shit, man. That strat was whack. You never call that again. Fuck you. You're garbage. I could do better than you. And you're like, this is another reason why being an IGL is fucking just dog shit, It's not, it's like, but they do it at all these orgs, by the way. This is like, and by the way, it can be like healthy and constructive, because bottling stuff up certainly isn't, and having honesty and being able to, but you have to sort of you have to earn that relationship before you start doing it. So it's not always healthy. Like, certainly, if you're, it depends. Framing is important. But anyway, so all of this is to say, I don't think Astralis would take a punt on Patty. I don't think they would. I think if they did, I don't think he can say no to that. I don't think Ecstatic would fucking, block him moving there or anything like that. And, I think he's actually surprisingly on the radar. You wouldn't have thought that up until this point. He's not somebody you've heard a lot of talk about, but he has actually done a legit achievement and could be on course to be the next Hooksy, in the sense of he's took a bunch of players that not a lot of people know, got to a major. If they get a decent finish there, he could get airlifted into the legit tier 1. And the difference between him and Hooksy is he can actually play. So, it wouldn't be the worst. I'd put this at about a 6 likelihood, and certainly for me, it's a move I would like to see. I'd like to see this Patty guy get a chance post Ecstatic Major to maybe play with some decent players, because Ecstatic really surprised me. They played some good counterstrike at the event. Then we have the big money maker move. Obviously, he's the talk of the town because what they've done with Mouse. This is Shuhei, I'm told to pronounce it as, not Shui. But here he is with the just like me, for real haircut, right? Which obviously I'm envious of, because I'm an old bald man. But since he's gone, in terms of like his very early achievements, he's 21. He won four academy leagues with Mouse Academy. He's got to a final of a major and already won a pro league with Mouse. So, you're like, okay, this is like super promising. And he's been doing it in an international lineup. And honestly, he's doing it with players like Torji, who were fucking dog shit. So it's kind of crazy. What could happen is Shuhei, Shuhei, I keep saying Shuhei. Shuhei could play his part in a different way. But first, let's just rule him out for Astralis. Astralis are so enamored with the Kings of, Denmark thing. I don't think they would ever go kind of like international in the set and bring in somebody and then they all have to speak English, even though they're all fluent in English. I don't think they would ever do it. I don't think that's like part of like Astralis' MO, and I don't think that's what they ever want to do. And so whether or not this is a move they could do, because by the way, spoiler, while I think Mouse would put a relatively large price tag on them, I also know enough about Mouse just as an org, and one of the reasons they went the academy route is that they're not a big money organization. They haven't been historically. Keep in mind, they're called Mouse now because Mouse Sport went bust somewhere along the way, and we all just stopped talking about it. So, I mean, look, they probably put a fucking price tag on him, but Astralis have proven, like, shit, we'll pay $2 million for any old shit. So, I mean, like, if you get him for 300K, that's a fucking bargain in my opinion, even if it was $500,000. But, the reality is they won't do that. But what I would say is this is probably how Shuhei could play his part. Let's say G2 do flop at the major, right? And Hooksy's on his way out. Shuhei goes to G2, which is a move that keeps being earmarked. Again, if I'm 21, 22, and I have to go and fucking call Nico, like, I'm not really vibing with that. But he goes to G2, Hooksy's out, maybe Astralis go, all right, we be Hooks in, and they roll the dice on that, and G2 feel really good about it. Might even let Hooksy go, out of his contract for absolutely, peanuts, because obviously they're getting something far, far better with the upside of you are getting a potential legacy IGL young coming into G2. He's going to be there, and you're going to replace bits and pieces around him, and Hooksy gets to essentially do the last of the summer wine as he transitions into his 30s at Astralis. So, that could all fit together like fucking Madam Web, except not shit. So who knows? But yeah, I don't see Shuhei ever going to Astralis. I don't see them breaking with the program of what we want to do is, be very true to the Danish identity of the org, and that's that. So it'll be great though. Obviously, you got to talk about him. Snappy's accomplishments with Ents have been nothing short of stellar. He's a IGL that, achieved consistently with an international lineup, and really showed that there was a lot more to him, considering, probably a few years ago, really before he sort of got his feet under the table at Ents, he was kind of a write-off, and he's one of those 1.6 guys that sort of drifted around. But obviously he has got the bag, and he has gone to Falcons. And so, look, there is a world, by the way, where because of the failure of to obtain the super team, let me just clarify what I mean by that, right? I know that Falcons never said really publicly, we're going to buy all the best players in the world and have the best team, right? I know they never said that, okay? But they thought that, right? And behind the scenes, they were saying that. And when Zonic and Magisk went there, they went there on that proviso. So let's stop tiptoeing around, and that's 100% what the plan was. And we know that there's more than meets the eye with the simple trial, and we know they had a long protracted talk with Nico, and we know they thought they were going to get Munacy, right? And instead they didn't. They ended up with the Ents core, and it's like, listen, it's a decent team, but you ain't at the major. And so now, like, keep in mind, they're like, oh, no, our plan is, like, we want to make a major by 2025. The first major 2025 is our target. On a long enough timescale, failure is not going to be tolerated there. They've already cut Boros, which I know they were super reluctant to do because they wanted an Arabic-speaking star player, would have been perfect, but they don't have that. Hasn't worked out. Boros was given very short shrift by the people coming in. They clearly didn't vibe with each other. And so, Snappy now, it's going to be on him. they're going to give him pieces. You're going to get a month with Simple, right? And how long do you think failure is going to be tolerated? I'll tell you straight up, that's some ruthless shit over there, by the way, guys. Because they don't care. Because remember, they're playing with house money. They don't give a fuck. If there's an opportunity to buy a player and upgrade a piece, they are going to do it. They're not going to stick with this, right? Remember, everybody was getting a chance, right? And then they just unceremoniously cut them all. Zipnick didn't care. He was never going to sit down and assess NBK and his potential to keep playing, was he? He wasn't going to do it. Never was. Said he was going to. Totally lied. Admitted he lied. So fair enough on that front. But anyway, there is only so far you can go where in the great... So this is how it always works. You go, okay, we get rid of the shit player. And then you go, all right, well, we got rid of the shit player and we upgraded it with a good player. So, you know, it's probably the IGL now, right? Okay, but what we do is we won't cut the IGL. We'll cut the assistant coach or the analyst. And then it's the IGL or the coach. And Zipnick ain't going nowhere. So Snappy's got like 2 lives left. Basically, he's playing a video game called Get the Bag, right? Get the bag, get the major, right? That's what the game is called. And he's got 2 fucking lives left, basically. If they keep flopping... And he will be given pieces consistently. If they don't work out, he's going to be in free agency. They'll just kick him. They'll get the fuck out, you know? And so there is a world where certainly, let's just say the stars align and Snappy is removed from Falcons because they failed to qualify for another big tournament or they've bombed out of whatever tier 1 tournament they're being lifted into due to their Saudi connections. If that just so happens to align with the exact moment Device is shitting the bed, then like that, then obviously Snappy could go to Astralis and it would be a very good move. I mean, listen, on the surface of it, if they'd announced Snappy somehow over Bro, let's just say the Falcons move never happened, you would go, that's fucking sick. Everyone would have been happy with it. If Falcons never happened and we were talking Snappy from Ents going to fucking Astralis, everyone would be like, whoa, this is like mega. This is like they're going to get the last like year or 2 out of Snappy and finally a real IGL and what we're going to do. So there is a world. This is like a 4.5, but 6 months or more from now. But, you know, never say never. And then finally, it's my boy. I'll never understand what happened to your career, Valde. My sweet, sweet Valde. I'll never be able to figure it out from now until the end of time. There was a period of time where Valde was so good, and I don't know. I just don't know what happened. He was like a fucking super cultured player, really intelligent on the game. He was just on course to be like another fucking unreal Danish talent. And then, I don't know, like fucking North and God knows what else. And then for some reason, Astralis just never wanted to play with him, never wanted to pick him up, never wanted to give him that opportunity. Now this poor motherfucker's at TSM. Makes me sad every single day. And he's 28 and he's running out of time. Now, I'll say this. Valde has been an IGL at points in his career. He's a very intelligent player, a very intelligent person, and certainly could be an IGL, but I don't think he's ever going to get that opportunity to ever show it again. I don't think he's going to get an opportunity, honestly, in a tier 1 team sort of ever again. I mean, like, because, by the way, he will probably be in free agency soon. Well, not free agency, but he'll be available. I don't think TSM really has a future. If TSM can't get sticker money, if they can't milk sticker money and grift sticker money out of CS, they're not going to stick around. They made it abundantly clear they don't value this game. They don't value esports anymore. I mean, what the fuck are they even doing? They don't even have a League of Legends team. So, unfortunately, Valde is one of those players where it's like, this is more like a little dream for me at the end of the segment, which is I'd love to see Valde get a chance to be an IGL in CS2, fresh, clean slate, you know, take over a team and just be an IGL again. I mean, fuck, I'd like to see him back, but there's high value in being an IGL right now, I think. There's a lot of IGLs that are getting old and are going to retire in, you know, this year. Maybe next, the absolute outside. If you can establish yourself as an IGL now, you're going to have a lot of options on the table. And so I'd like to see him do it. I mean, even if it was something like he had to find a team where he was an IGL and do like an Apex style thing, like what Stico did, and basically somehow just beat the odds with, no money. Like, sure. But obviously at the moment he's kind of just rotting away in like TSM, and it's a massive waste. This guy's always been better than people thought he was for me, and obviously there's a lot of nostalgia, but he's a guy who, like, definitely capable of being an IGL, and CS2, it's worth a go for me. But would he get a chance in Astralis? They've passed over Valde when he was a fucking sick player in North, so absolutely not. He's never going to get there, I don't think, and I don't know where he's going to end up in general. I certainly hope it's not one of those like premature retirements where it's like TSM announced they're getting rid of it and Valde goes, I can't do it again. I just can't get out of bed again. Obviously we've seen some incredible comebacks. Yugi is he's back. He announced his comeback and everyone just went, yeah. Please don't. Please, no. It's a shame as well. He sounded so enthusiastic. He's like, I've decided to look for opportunities only in CS2. I've missed CS like crazy, and I'm really motivated to make a comeback. I've been grinding a lot of Face It lately, back to the game I love, and I'm ready to show the world what I'm capable of once again. He's done like the little bro fist emoji. Retweets and love appreciated. It's like, listen, yeah, you did show us what you were capable of last time. You really did. And you had an absolute just nightmare mode career. Where you had that brief period of time in Heroic, didn't you? Where you were fucking unreal. And everyone was like, wow, look, who's this guy? And then after that, it was just a GG. But yeah, so anyway, Yugi's back. No chance of him becoming the IGL for Astralis. Just putting that out there. So, yeah, I know. Listen, I probably should have also definitely done a graphic for config. I watched that interview that he did with Thorin, and I'm like, this guy's never going to get it. He's just never going to get it. He understands the game. Like, no responsibility. It was all the team's fault, blah, blah. It's like, fuck me, dude. I've got that guy absolutely pinned. But again, obviously, like, Duncan sees only the talent. He only sees the peak. And because Duncan just loves great counterstrike, whereas I don't even care. All I see is the prick. So, anyway, those are some thoughts about some long-term solutions. The bottom line is, probably Astralis would do none of those things. They're very hard to predict what they're going to do. And I think Device, because of the disproportionate nature of power he wields within the organization, Device is going to get chance after chance after chance after chance. And I think it's going to be a very long year for you in Astralis, because honestly, I look at that lineup and it's like, yeah, people are going to get their roles, but it's like you're bringing in Bro essentially to just be the fucking bitch. So all of the star players who've massively underperformed and haven't qualified for events, they're all going to get their roles, are they? Well, apart with the exception of Stair, obviously. They're all going to get their roles, and he's not going to get his. And you're going to do that on the proviso that Device can be really, really good and somehow turn it around and be a wicked IGL. Yeah, I don't know. And the other thing is as well, Rugger, who's been officially confirmed as a coach at Astralis, he obviously goes back with Device. I think he might even have played with him in Source. Could be wrong, but I think he did. So, I think that's another problem moving forward, that Rugger has a good relationship with Device, and maybe it's a bit too good, and it's like a problem that we're all in on Device's vision now, basically. Maybe it works. I am not a believer. And the interesting thing is, the reaction, by the way, from the community, they're not a believer either. Like, again, rare moment that we're kind of all aligned, which I was kind of surprised about. Usually Reddit and me were a fucking million miles away in terms of like what's happening. So, it wouldn't be a stream if I didn't read some Reddit. IGL and Orc with Stabby on the team, bold move, because obviously they're alluding to the fact that Cade, what they did to Cadian, which is, again, yep. I mean, listen, if you import snakes, don't be fucking surprised when you get fucking bit. You know what I mean? So you better know what you're doing, and you better trust these motherfuckers. You got to be fucking kidding me. And then someone said, it's easy to say with hindsight that making Device your passive star AWP at an IGL is a terrible roster move, but it was also easy to say in the beginning and through the middle too. Listen, I'll say this, like, Jane proves you can be a passive AWP in an IGL, but, you know, see if you can figure out the difference. Seeing how the Nico IGL era went, I'm not looking forward to the Device IGL era. Considering how Device tweeted he doesn't even enjoy playing at the moment and how more or less defeated he looked playing the RMR, not too sold on him being the IGL. That's what we call a high-level thinking Redditor. Yes, indeed. What does it say? That your IGL is a moody bastard. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not great, is it? Astralis can't stop taking L's. Madness. Did you not learn from Electronic and Mezzi? Denmark, the company with the most IGLs on Earth, and you signed bro. They want to kill off the only good thing about Astralis. What the fuck? This is literally the worst route they could have gone. All that Danish IGL talent, but no, you make your star player the IGL. This management is undefeated when it comes to making bad choices post-COVID. Are they trolling, knowing this is legit? What is this, Fiesta? Seems Bubsky called it. Article is in Danish. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if Bubsky knew in advance. Astralis first ruined Blame F by making him IGL, and now it's Device's turn. Surely this is temporary till post-major shuffle, so they try to get Cadian, Carrigan, Glaive, Snappy, or Hooksy. It will never be Cadian. No, it won't. Cadian. Imagine that. Imagine if imagine how like Stown and Yabby are like, right, we've got to get out of here and get to Astralis and get rid of Cadian, and then like Astralis sign fucking Cadian. Like, yeah, no, it will never be that. But anyway, you can see that like the reaction to this move is like, please, like, just get a real IGL, get someone with experience, tenure, someone that can problem solve, someone that's got a bit like more maturity emotionally in terms of like dealing with things. That's a fucking cauldron to go into. But they're gonna do this because it's Astralis. So enjoy, people. Enjoy, Astralis fans. You deserve it.